The floor is all yours, Jeff.
Cool, thank you. So, thanks so much for hanging out today. I love carving out time to just listen to music. The best way to, I think the best way to get the most out of your listening music experience is to just tell yourself that that's what you're doing, and you're not going to have it on as just a background thing. You're really going to focus on just some great time to just listen. And you notice I've got these headphones on because I'm really a fan of hearing music as good as it possibly can be. So you want to set yourself up to really enjoy everything you can about listening to music. So I want to show you, first off, there's like a gear thing because we all listen to a lot of stuff on our phones. We all listen to a lot of stuff in some less than ideal environments. Um, these, I'm going to share this screen real quick, are the headphones that I'm using. And you can see they're relatively affordable. And the reason I like them is because they're the closed back. They're also a full range headphone, and they're engineered to be very flat. And flat doesn't mean boring. Flat just means nothing is spiked, nothing is artificial. It's just the sound signal that's from whatever source you've got it from, whether you're listening to vinyl or MP3s or CDs. And for $100, you can have a really, really solid set of headphones. My only complaint about them is if long times I need to change the padding. I can see in the photo they've updated it so that the padding on the headband is a lot better. This one doesn't actually have any padding, so it gets kind of uncomfortable because they are a little heavy. But with the closed back over the ear style that you can see here, what you get out of that is a good 20 dB cut and all the source room around you. So it's almost like noise canceling headphones without having the artificial sound. And I use these are my primary recording headphones because there's no bleed. When I'm recording with these things, you don't hear what I'm listening to getting into my bass mic. So I think that's, for the money, they're really great. If you want to step it up, if you've got a bunch of money, this is the next thing up that I like, the Alo headphones. They're these handmade headphones out of Slovenia. They're relatively new, but three of my favorite mixing engineers and audio engineers that I know up in New York all swear by these things. They're crazy comfortable. You can wear them all day. They never get heavy. They are incredibly flat. And what is super cool about these is that you can buy these plates. So you can go from open backed mixing headphones to closed back recording headphones just by screwing these plates on. That's the only difference between those two models is just those plates. So people want to listen and reference while you're mastering or mixing with open back headphones. It's just a little more natural sound. But closed backs are the way to go to do any recording. And then if you're feeling more fancy, you can spend you could spend $400 on these reference headphones, which are designed for mastering folks in mind. And they are, you see this, where's the curve they show? There it is. This is the response curve. If you know anything about tech specs, that's one of the most amazing lines I've ever seen. You see how it's so tight. You've got basically 84 dB at the beginning. It doesn't really start scooping down till you get into 7,500 hertz. That's just out right below the threshold of human hearing. So for the money, these headphones are absolutely amazing. So that's a quick 5 minutes on some gear. You can get really nuts in headphones. You can go all the way to, I'm trying to find how do I get off share screen? There we go. Sorry, I'm a Zoom newbie. You can go all the way to spending, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on headphones. You don't really need to. But for $100, these are great. For $400, the next step up is really fantastic. Um, I don't like Beats. I don't like Beats headphones because they're artificial. They scoop the bass up to this unrealistic quality, and you're not actually hearing music how it's mastered, how it's supposed to sound. So if you've got some, sell them and buy something else. Uh, okay, first off, I want to make sure that you guys can hear this as I share it, because I might have to take my headphones off. Uh, Marcus, is this coming through?
I don't hear anything.
No, I
You
don't
don't
hear
hear
it.
anything. Okay. So I think I have to take these off. How about now?
So Jeff,
You're good.
when you hit share, do share computer audio with it, and it should work. So unshare
Uh-huh.
your screen.
I'm sharing the screen. Yeah.
No, so unshare it,
Okay.
and then now when you go to share it again, and then in the
Hmm.
bottom left corner, you'll see something that says share computer audio.
Uh-huh.
And now that'll we should be able to hear whatever is being played through your computer.
Great. Thank you. That's great. Okay. So first up, I want to talk about just the basic mechanics of listening to music, and I want to use probably the most famous record ever in all of jazz. It's Miles Davis' "Kind of Blue." Like it's just considered the jazz record. It's the starting point for so many people that start a jazz collection. So let's just listen to the beginning of it, just for enjoyment's sake. I don't. I recommend listening to everything that way first. Just like hang out with it and enjoy it, and see how it makes you feel. See what emotions it conjures. See what feeling you get. Does it groove or not? Does it groove with you? Does it make you move? Let's let's hang out with the opening of Miles Davis. This is So What. That was the first. That was the head and the first like chorus and a bit of Miles's first solo on Kind of Blue. So now, as a casual listener, is just enjoying the music. Just let it kind of wash over you, and just have a good time with it. Just feel that amazing groove and that amazing time feel. As musicians, we want to dig in a little deeper. We want to listen specifically about this time feel, and we want to. It's going to help us all learn how to play with each other by listening to these masters do it. So we're going to start from the bottom up. I'm going to go back to it. I'm not going to bother sharing because I think you can still hear it. It just takes a lot of extra stuff. We're just going to focus on the first chorus of Miles's solo. We're going to listen to a few different instruments. We're going to see exactly what they're doing. And I want you to pay attention right now. I want everyone to just listen to the bass player. And I want you to think about the feel when you think about his time. I want you to think about the length of his notes, the attack of his notes, all the different things that it takes to play the bass. Just ask yourself questions about what you're hearing. Let's check out just the bass player. Yeah, super locked in with the piano, super locked in with everybody. The things I noticed right away is that he's just playing quarter notes, except at the beginning of about every other bar, he goes doom ga doom 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 ga doom. That one and two, and that middle sound is based on a triplet subdivision, not an eighth note subdivision. That helps the swing. That locks in with the swing that the drums are putting out. The other thing that's cool is that most of the notes are very connected. They're as long as a bass note can possibly be before you have to play the next note. And that's a hallmark of a really great bass line. It's this foundational tone. You want it to think about your bass line as like just a sine wave that doesn't ever stop, and the notes change. But the attack of the bass is right in line with the drums, with the ride cymbal, right in line with the swing. And I don't think anyone really does it better than these two guys together. This album help define straight ahead timekeeping for lots and lots of people. The other thing that's super interesting to me about this bass line is you'll notice, even if you don't know a whole ton about theory, your ear can definitely hear this, where every other bar on the A sections, Paul Chambers is playing the tonic, or sometimes the fifth, but he's playing the root note. This is a modal jazz tune, so the form is AABA, and each section is 8 bars long. The A section is in D minor. The bridge, the B section, is in E flat minor. You'll notice that he's playing the tonic a lot at the top of the bar, all the way through the A section. But the moment you get to the bridge, he only plays the E flat, the tonic, on the very first note of the bridge, and he never plays it again. He never gives you the clue as to what tonality we're in. So he's super rooted in establishing it on the A section. But when the bridge comes around, he's increasing the tension by not giving you the root. He's not allowing you to feel centered because he doesn't want you to think that this is actually a new tonality. It's just a side bet. It's just this tense moment before we relax back into the D. Check it out because it's really wonderful. Yeah, see, the moment that comes back together, it just relaxes. You just completely relaxes back into D minor. It's almost like the sun comes out, even though it's a minor tonality. And he does that the entire tune. He's always playing with tension on the bridge. So now I want to listen to the same chorus again, but I want to go back to checking out just the drums. Just listen to what the drummer's doing. And I want you to notice some of the things we noticed about the bass, just the feel, the time feel. I want you to think that about the drums. So the thing I noticed right away is, once again, the drums and the bass, that hookup is intense. And if we analyze exactly what each part of the kid is doing, how he's orchestrating his drum set, at the very, very top of the piece, he hits this crash, but it's super dark, right? It doesn't, and he lets the thing wash all the way out. It just hangs forever. He doesn't choke it. It lasts. It's just this, but right away he moves over to his ride that is crisp. It's very crisp. And then the hi-hat is super dry. Instead of it being like tit, 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 like a little laser beam that cuts through the band, it's just really, really dry. There's hardly any, and he's stomping it just hard enough that it's very, very tight. It's not like a before it closes. It just goes tip, but it has a depth in its tone that it cuts through the band a certain way. So you'll see, and in the ride pattern, what he's doing is 1, 2, ga-ding, ding, 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 ga-ding, ding. It's mostly just quarter notes, but he'll swing between 2 and 3. You notice, like I said before, the bass would do an extra little hop. He'd do a swing hop between 1 and 2. That's totally by design. That is not by accident. That is a way to get that feeling to roll in a certain way. The other thing I think is really neat, of course, he's feathering the bass drum. It's hard to hear on these MP3s unless you've got decent headphones, but he's barely touching it on the beat with the bass, and that adds that support. By feathering the bass drum at the exact same time that the bass player pulls a string, you're adding a small amount of attack to that pulse. It helps seat that pulse in time. And the other thing I think is pretty great is in his snare. Over time in the solo, he increases the level of activity. He's not comping right off the bat. He's not trying to fill up every single space that Miles is doing. When Miles does leave a space, he'll make a single sound, but it's all triplet based stuff inside the beat. And you'll also notice he doesn't touch the toms at all. He won't touch the toms a bit. Not until the tenor solo does he ever actually use the toms, and he only does it. I think he waits till the beginning of the bridge to do a little roll, to do a fill into the bridge. It's pretty spectacularly, beautifully restrained playing. The next thing I want to listen to is we're going to listen to the piano now. This time around, I'm going to listen to his comping. I want you to listen to how little he plays. I'm going to listen to these very specific rhythms that he's going to be doing. These are great classic rhythms that all pianists use and that we all should know and be aware of. They sort of set up a certain feeling. You're going to hear this Charleston rhythm, the Charleston, Charleston, that da dot. We hear it all the time. He's using it to great effect in here. And I also want you to pay attention to when he's choosing short notes versus long notes. Let's check it out. Mostly short notes until the bridge. Or if he's doing longer notes, it's in that Charleston rhythm. Long, short, long, short. Really dig like at the end of the first A section when he just plays these 4/4 notes. It's like 3, 4, 1, 2. It's almost crazy square. And then later on in the second A section, he kind of recops that, but he does it based on triplets. It starts on the last note of the first quarter note triplet in the bar. So it's like let, triple, let, but it's the same chords. It's just slightly different ordered. It's the same sound. So he's hearkening back to a thing he did almost 8 bars before. He's like playing with how he's playing. And you'll notice there's certain notes that when he's sustaining, he's hitting exact moments that Miles is sustaining and not playing short notes. And the other thing that's super great about his comping is how he chooses to deal with tension in the bridge. Right before the bridge, he really announces that we are going to have a new sound by going 3 and these big sustained sounds, wide voicings. The ninth and the fourth are really, really prevalent in that voicing. And so it adds to that ambiguity and it adds to that tension. So I want to listen to that again. And what he's doing is he's keeping that tension by only playing on the and of 4 long sustained notes for the first 4 bars. And it really, really adds this build and this rise of tonality and tension. Check this out. Of sustaining and short notes. The release is just as important as the attack, like how long your notes are and how you release them. The piano is a percussion instrument. It's hammers hitting strings. That's what's happening on in the guts. So you've got to think percussively if you're going to comp correctly. And all the masters do that way. They think very, very rhythmically in their comping. So now we've focused on every instrument in the rhythm section. And now I want to finally listen to the soloists. Let's get critical about Miles. Let's really pay attention to what he's got going on, how he's choosing to start this solo. Let's think about all the things we thought about. Let's think about long versus short notes. Let's think about placement. Let's think about the attack. Let's think about range, how he's doing tension and release. Because it's one of the great solos of all time. When you get into transcribing, I highly recommend doing Miles Davis solos from this record. And I'll tell you why in just a second. Really beautiful storytelling. And what I think is kind of amazing about this solo is it starts so simply. His phrase and his ideas are very, very simple. And he returns to this same rhythmic idea the entirety of his solo. Right? Be-ba-da, ba-do-be-dee, ba-do-dot. It's that rhythm. Do-dot. He's going to use that the entire time. And at the beginning of the solo, it's just 3 notes. Boo-ba-da. And then a breath, a pause, and a slightly longer idea. Boo-be-da-dee-dee-dot. And then we get a longer idea. Boo-doo-be-da-da-da-da-dee-da-dot. Tweet. A new high note. So for those of you that have a hard time with your scales and your arpeggios, if you think practicing them is boring, all we've heard so far is an arpeggio, right? That's all he's done. It's just 1, 3, 5. 1, 5, bo, be, da, dot, do, beat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry, it's 1, 5, and 4. 1, 5, 4, 5, 1, 1. 1, 3, 5, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 3, 5, 7, 6, 7, 6, 5, 3, 5, 4, 5, 1, 1. It's all diatonic. It's all right in the scale. In fact, the entire solo is almost completely diatonic. There's only 2 times that he doesn't play something that comes from these chords that are written on the chart. And that's when he'll throw in a major 7 as a leading tone to get you to the root. but otherwise they're completely right inside the tonality. And it's amazing that it sounds so good. It's such a great solo. Just not having to play anything away. It's not boring to stay inside. It's a beautiful solo. Even when he gets all the way, and you'll notice like all the phrases are fairly short. The first longish phrase is like going into the bridge, and then it's the bridge he plays as two long phrases. And they sound a little, the first one's very languid and kind of snakes around a little. The second one almost sounds kind of out. But I want to show you when we get there that it's not out at all. It's only one note different, but he kind of fools you because of how he resolves out of it. Check this out. What's so cool about that is, once again, it's all diatonic. And if you're learning your scales and you think about scale degree, then this is really great for ear training. Because you can put the numbers of that the notes are in the scale, and you can hear things a lot faster once you get used to this idea. So the bridge starts 4 1 7 2 4 3 5 6 7 1 6 5 5 2 4 3 2 4 2 1 1. All diatonic. What a great line. It's all right in the scale. And the next one, it resolves out into the new chord. We're still in E flat, but the last four notes of this quote unquote weird line, he's already playing in D minor. He's playing pickups to the goal, right? It's jazz, and yes, it's improvisation, but it's still tonal music, which is goal-based music, right? We're always thinking about the chords that are coming and how we're going to get there. Just like when you're telling a really good story, you know the whole story, but you know how to make it interesting to get to the important parts, to get to the interesting parts of the story, to get to the end of the story. How do we keep interest? It's the same idea. It's just language. We're just using music as our language. So that next phrase, 4 5 7 1 2 3 4 5 flat 7 7 4 7 flat 7 6 5 4 4 5. Now we're in the new key for the last four notes. 4 5 7 1 5 5. Instead of analyzing it as how those notes fit inside E flat, the tonality of the bridge, they're already pickups. He's already thinking the phrase of the new idea. It's like a good drum fill. You're thinking about the new side of the form, the place that you're going. So I'll play that last thing instead of making you listen to me sing it poorly. And just check out how the last four eighth notes before we hit the top of the new A section are definitely in D minor, even though the chord is still E flat the entire time. And you'll hear how solid he puts those notes in the time with the rhythm section, and how he plays around with it just a little bit. So when I'm really, really getting locked in on the sound of a record and the sound of a band, that's the kind of detail work that I like to do. I like to get down to every single instrument, what they're doing, what they're contributing, how they're fitting together, how they all sit inside the grid at the same time. And this is pretty straight ahead playing. It's fairly interactive in a traditional sense. As music moves on, that level of interactivity changes. And some people want their bands to be more of an accompanist as a vehicle for just really great soloing. Look, if I skip down here to Coltrane's Blue Train, you'll hear right away that the rhythm section is laying down a really great foundation for him to float on top of, right? There's not a lot of, he's definitely getting information from his colleagues, but there's not a lot of space. Coltrane is not a very spacious player, and there's not a lot of dialogue. So it's rhythm section as accompanist. Super weird, man. It sounds great. It feels really great. Like everybody else is doing exactly the same feeling. So that kind of trust that you have in a really great rhythm section, where someone does something slightly away from center, but everyone else is just solid in their time and solid in their relationship, allows that thing to create a lot of interest, to create some tension for someone else to mess with. It's a really, really great thing to do. That level of trust is something that all masterful rhythm sections have. And that's why Coltrane chooses these guys to play with him because he knows that they're going to be there together and they're going to be there for him to do his sheets of sound thing on top of. He takes this so far that he becomes like the guy in free jazz. And one of the great pieces that I highly recommend checking out is Ascension. Ascension's a large ensemble piece. There's 12 musicians, and all the music for it is on a single piece of paper. And they're just 2 or 3 measure ideas, very simple ideas, and that they're used as jumping off points and cues for free improvisation. So Ascension's very long. It's a 40-minute piece, but I want to play some of it. And I'm going to skip forward a little so you can hear how out and how interactive improvisation can get. Broken into what we consider traditional timekeeping. It's still very aggressive. It's still very upfront, but it wasn't meandery. It wasn't timeless for that whole amount of time. It was just far more communicative and far more interactive, where the drummer didn't really need to keep house. He didn't have to provide the safe space. He could interact and create with everybody else. And it turns into more like sound painting than actually like just role keeping that we're used to. Check out the whole record because it does these rise and falls. And I'm listening for the exact same stuff that I was listening with the Miles record. I'm listening to the interactivity between these instruments. I'm listening to how long, how short notes are. I'm listening to accents. I'm listening to activity. But when these people are just reacting together, when they have like a 4-note idea that they can hang out with for a while, and then eventually they all leave it and they start having this insane conversation, they know that in the future there will be another 4 or 5-note cue. It's this idea to get to. It's like the next subject in the conversation. So they're all really paying attention to each other. They're not just goofing off and noodling. They really, really are listening. And that's the difference. You can definitely tell the difference when free jazz is really communicative and when people are just like playing at the same time in the same room. You know what I mean? You can easily tell the difference. So I want you to listen for that when you're checking out avant-garde music. The other thing I also want to talk about is we noticed when we talk about time feel, where in the straight ahead stuff with Miles, everything's pretty much right in the middle. There's very little push and pull. Everyone's trying to play this sound and this time together. But sometimes bands don't do that. Sometimes what's an interesting feel of a band is if some people play in a different spot in the beat. Yeah, the beat is a steady place, and there's this one sound that happens where the beat is exactly. But we can have our concept to be in front of the beat, on the beat, behind the beat. And it can, some kinds of music, it's even mobile. It kind of moves around what we think of as the center of the beat. One of the great examples of this is Count Basie's band doing Little Darwin. So I want you to, it's basically how slow can we play and still swing is the idea of it. And I want you to listen to how ahead of the beat, since we're running out of time, I'm just going to tell you what I'm experiencing when I'm checking this out. The bass player is always on top of the beat. He's always getting there just a little ahead. The drums are playing on just the back side of the beat. The horns are all the way on the back. They're like laying down into the next bar sometimes. It's ridiculously the last possible moment they can play the note together. And then the only people that are right in the middle of it are Freddie Green, the guitarist, and Count Basie, the piano. Like everything you hear them do is just bang, 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 perfect. I'm going to start after the solo because that's when the real time. So now here's an example of the complete other side of the spectrum. And here's Miles Davis with his great quintet from Live at the Plug Nickel in Chicago. Tony Williams on the drums, who is playing all the way in front of the beat. I mean, he's almost rushing. In fact, sometimes on this record, he's just rushing. There's tunes that end way faster than they start, almost 20 beats faster. But check out Oleo. There's a ride pattern around all over the place. The ride pattern isn't just ding ding a ding ding a ding ding a ding ding a ding a ding ding a ding a ding ding a ding 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 ding. He's really messing with time. he's really messing with just the idea of what a drummer is supposed to do, but he's still holding this thing. But it's so far on top, so far ahead of the beat. It's this amazing energy, and if at some point in your lives as jazz musicians, I highly recommend sitting down and listening to all of the Plug Nickel box set. There's 5 sets. It's 2 nights, and I just sort of I mimicked it once I listened to the first night one night, and the next night I listened to the next night, just pretending like I was there at the gig. And you listen to a band change. You listen to a band become a different band in 2 nights. It's one of these really, really amazing moments. Yeah, right. I don't know how you're supposed to blow over that. I don't know how I'm supposed to hold bass time with that. Do you just like hang on for dear life like Ron is, I guess? Um, I know we got to wrap things up real quick, but I also want to talk about this idea of interactivity. Take a very deep breath. Um, and just because it's avant-garde and it's totally interactive doesn't mean it has to be super aggressive. I mean, there's stuff like Peter Brotzman, Machine Gun, and this is probably just Brotzman is one of the most aggressive avant-garde jazz musicians. Another guy, if you're into that kind of stuff, is John Zorn, the Sax's band. Brotzman is just angry. He's just angry in general. Check out John Zorn from the '80s, especially a band called Naked City. Very aggressive, very fast. It's their influence was industrial music and industrial metal, and they're mixing that with jazz. So that's just this aggressive, in-your-face way of playing. Completely on the other side of the spectrum of interactivity is this wonderful trio. It's Paul Motian, Bill Frisell, and Joe Lovano. So drums, guitar, saxophone, no bass. And it has, and the drummer, Paul Motian, is famous for not keeping the time. He's just not concerned about doing that job. He wants to improvise and he wants to collaborate with everyone on an equal level. So when you're listening to this trio's been together like 30 years. They've been playing this way. And you don't miss the bass at all. It's not necessary because all 3 people, their time is so good that it's obvious the feel that's happening. You don't need a bass player to give it to you if your time is solid and if their communication together is solid. And this is a really interesting way to do a very old song. This is a song from the '30s, from an old musical. This is called "I Have the Room Above Her." It's so beautiful. And clearly, Paul Motian, the drummer, he's just painting. He's not keeping any kind of time at all. The time is so there. It's so solid. The trio is playing together so well, but they're not. No one's like doing the heavy lifting. No one's doing the job that a certain instrumentalist is supposed to do. They all know the song, and they all know each other, and they all trust how things feel and how the time is. And that particular piece, since it's like this old melody, that's about as standard as these guys play. I've seen them live a few times, and you never know what they're going to do, what they're going to come up with. It's some of the most beautiful, delicate, interactive things. I've seen them play in that style, totally free. So you can play free without being atonal and aggressive and angry. At the end of the day, it's all just about listening and listening to each other. No matter what style of music you're playing, no matter what ideas you're trying to get across, it's the listening that's the most important thing. So I hope that gives you some ideas, some strategies as to how to listen a little deeper, a little more critically about the music that you love. I think these ideas of listening work for any kind of music. I don't think it's dependent on just jazz. And I think you just get more out of it the more you know about it. We got a little bit of time left. Is there any questions? Anybody want to ask anything? How do I choose what to listen to? That is a great question. Um, it kind of depends on what I need. I have a radio show on Wednesdays at KKFI 90.1 FM from 1 to 3 Wednesday afternoons. So I have a format that I follow. I have 2 hours, and I always start with Charlie Parker, and just because this is Kansas City, and he's great. And then I take an hour to wind my way through time to today. And then when I'm done, I get within that hour, I spend the next hour playing all brand new music, all things that came out in the past 3 weeks. Um, so when I'm programming my radio show, I'm listening with those goals in mind. But when it comes time to listen just for myself, uh, it's just like everybody else. Sometimes you just want something that you like, and you just want something that you're familiar with, and that makes you feel a certain way. And so if I have a certain kind of emotion and I want to explore it, I want to help it, I'll find music that satisfies it. Sometimes if I don't want to explore it, if I want to chase it out, I'll find other music that helps negate it. To me, music is a very emotional, very spiritual, very connecting thing. It's a very healing force for us. Um, there are times that I decide that I need to hear something new. I need to branch out, and so I'll just try to find stuff. I just contact my friends. I look at certain lists. I look at what other DJs are playing. Dig through the history. There's more music that's been recorded in the past 10 years than I'll ever hear by myself. So, just kind of nose around. Uh, Back when we could go to record stores, it was really fun for me to go to the vinyl area and then just flip, 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 and grab one and pull it out and check it out, like just completely randomly. And I do that on the internet. I really like that process. Um, yeah, I think it's if I'm working on something musically to better myself as a bass player or as a musician, I will look towards things that will influence the gigs that I have coming up or the music that I'm trying to write. I'll do a lot of transcribing. I transcribe and learn a lot of horn players because I want to have a more melodic feeling on the bass than just sound like bass player solos. Um, yeah, all those ways for me. And then I think the most important thing about listening for yourself is is finding something that really turns you on, and when it does, just hang out with it for a really long time. And don't be afraid to listen to anything else. I still put stuff on repeat all the time. There was a piece of music that I just heard. It was 2 nights ago, and it was at a very, very, very late hour. I just couldn't go to bed because I kept repeat, repeat, repeat. I listened to this one 15-minute piece of music over and over again for 2 hours, and I still have it in my head. I'm still like dealing with it. I'm gonna go listen to it again tonight because it's that blowing my mind. It's that amazing. I just can't get enough of it. So that like repeated listening, that joy, I think is really important. Does your environment affect your listening experience, or do you just focus on the music? Yes, absolutely. The environment definitely affects your listening experience. I don't think you can parse them out. It's why like when I'm choosing to just listen, I like headphones or I like my nice stereo system that I've got set up. I don't like to do other things. I don't like to have stuff going on. I don't just do chores or answer emails. Man, if I'm stuck like answering emails or like surfing the net, I'm not listening anymore. It's just background and it's not doing anything. It's going right over me. There's nothing wrong with that, but I'm not actually listening. I want to not have anything else going on when I listen. That's an active thing, the action of listening. What's your favorite bebop tune and why? Hmm. Um, I I'm always partial to Subconsciously. I think it's masterful. And Donna Lee. I had an old guitar teacher once tell me his teacher was Pat Martino, very very famous guitarist, and he said if you want to learn how to play bebop, all you have to do is learn Donna Lee, but you have to learn it in all 12 keys, and you have to learn it in 5 separate tempos, like like medium, kind of fast, really fast, oh my god fast, and holy shit I can't play that fast. And then a year and 2 3 years later, you've kind of got it, all of it. Donnelly has almost everything in the bebop language in it, but Subconsciously is a really great tune. A simpler one is that Parker had Opera Va. It's a great Parker blues that I really love. I play it all the time. What have you heard that you think will lead the next generation? Who have you heard? Fabian Almazar is this pianist from Cuba. Terrence Blanchard put him in his band. And he's a young fellow. He's got his own record label called Biophilia. And I think he's doing things in the piano I haven't heard yet. And his composing is just phenomenal, truly cinematic. Uh, there's nothing he doesn't reference. He's got the biggest, most open ears and palette. He thinks like a film composer on jazz records, and I'm not going to be surprised if he ends up getting into film composing because it's that good. Another pianist that's rooted in the tradition in a way that we haven't heard in a long time is Marcus, help me out. It's the guy that comes into town with Tivan all the time.
Sullivan Fortner.
Sullivan Fortner, thank you. Man, his counterpoint and his voice leading and the comping from chords to chord is just stupid. It's so lovely. I could just listen to him comp piano for other people. Those are the two of the young guys that are really turning me on right now. I kind of follow what they're doing. The name of the Joe Lovano tune, the album from I Have the Room Above Her is I Have the Room Above Her. It's the name of the record.
Cool, man. We are out of time. Thanks Jeff for coming in and sharing your knowledge with us and all of that. And
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me, Marcus. I appreciate it.
man, thank you so much. I just want to do a couple of housekeeping things for tomorrow, guys. All right, so that same Zoom link should work for tomorrow as well. Just get in, a few minutes before class. Let's try to have everybody, be there on time so that I don't have to try to keep letting people in the room as we're trying to teach. Um, and then, so tomorrow, how to learn and practice standards with Peter Schlam at 10 a.m. Piano voicings for non-pianists with Eddie Moore. Drum set styles with Brandon Draper. We're going to split that class. So drummers will go with Brandon. Everybody else will go with Matt Otto for composition. So if you want to watch the drum set video later, you will be able to. Drummers, you can go back and watch Matt Otto's composition masterclass. And then transcription becomes flow at 2 p.m. with John Kurzilamut. And he's basically going to talk about how to use what you learn in transcription to give your solos flow instead of just plug and play licks. Having flow of ideas in your solos. So that's tomorrow. So I'll see you guys tomorrow morning at 10. If you have any questions or anything, just send me an email, please, between now and then. And I will see you tomorrow. We're just getting started. So a lot of stuff coming your way. Today was kind of a nice, easy, get in there day, but we'll get into some stuff tomorrow. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Tate, if you're still around, hang in there for a second.